So no distracted eating. Number 2, don't eat too many or try to avoid heavily processed food. Here's one rule that I make for people. Let's avoid heavily processed foods. Now, someone may ask why. Why is that? Are they just inherently less healthy? Not necessarily. Yes, for the most part, but not necessarily. Mainly it's because heavily processed foods have been so well engineered to overcome all your systems of satiety. Everything that tells you to stop eating, you're full. They've engineered these foods so well to overcome that you will eat more. It will make you eat faster. It will induce a more binge type behavior because of how, and believe me, the engineering that goes into these things is insane. It's the flavor and the crunch and the wrapper and the powder it leaves on your fingers and the aftertaste, and like all this stuff is accounted for when they make these types of foods. And they're so good at it that they've done some really good studies where they've taken groups of people and these are controlled studies. So food studies are tough because they're often observational and there's so many things that can influence, how food affects us. But they've done controlled studies. Well, they'll take people and they'll put them in rooms. This room over here, whole natural foods. This room over here, heavily processed foods. They also control for macros, so similar proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And then they tell people, just eat as much as you want or as little as you want. Then they watch them. They count the calories. They count all that stuff. Then they switch them. Okay, now you go in this room and you go in this room. The difference in caloric intake is 500 to 600 calories. That's huge. 500 to 600 more calories a day from consuming heavily processed foods.
Whoa.
Okay. In fact, if you look at the obesity epidemic, we've tried to connect fat to it, and then we've tried to connect carbs to it, and then we've tried to connect sugar to it. Really, the strongest correlation is heavily processed foods. As that's made up more of our diet, obesity has followed right along with it. So I tell people, avoid those foods because it makes it really hard for you to connect to the signals that your body's telling you, because these foods are so good at overriding all those signals. So just cut those out. By the way, that'll result probably in about 400 or 500 calories reduced in your diet naturally. In fact, I used to tell clients as an effective way to get them to reduce their calories, I'd say, eat as much as you want, just don't eat heavily processed foods. And they'd be like, really, I can eat as much as I want? Yeah, absolutely, just don't eat heavily processed foods. And then they'd lose weight and they'd think we did some kind of magic. It's like, actually, you ate less, you just didn't realize it. So that's the second thing, okay? The third thing is to